WSNJ and the SNJ Today family are celebrating 80 years of service to the people of South Jersey. WSNJ first signed on the air at 12:10 on the dial on Sunday, August 22, 1937. It was the beginning of a very long tradition of quality broadcasting. Howard Frazier, a Philadelphia broadcasting pioneer in the mid-1930s, decided to apply with the Federal Communications Commission for his own station license in Bridgeton, New Jersey. After all, Howard was born here, and it was the most populous city in Cumberland County. There were many local merchants, plus department stores and 3 movie theaters. Another seasoned broadcaster was Paul Alger, who became general manager. The studios and the transmitter were housed in a new building near today's intersection of routes 56 and 77 at Carl's Corner, just north of Bridgeton. Just for reference, the New Jersey State Police Barracks are now on that ground, and the police tower now stands on the same spot as the former SNJ Tower. The signal from WSNJ could be heard as far away as Vineland, Millville, Elmer, Salem, and Woodstown. Back in the 1930s, newspapers declined to print the schedules of radio station programs. Therefore, WSNJ distributed its own paper with articles about performers and the complete hourly programs for the week. Most shows originated in the SNJ studios, but there were exceptions. One of the first staff announcers was John Franklin.
This is your commentator, John Franklin,
who broadcast a remote, as they were called, sidewalk interviews in downtown Bridgeton. Other shows included news and weather, and, of course, music, both live and recorded. Lou Ayres became quite popular as an organ soloist. On Sunday, there were religious programs. During the week, listeners could even get the latest Vineland egg auction prices, etc. Initially, SNJ was on the air only during daylight hours, but in 1938, the station received FCC permission to broadcast full-time, that is, day and night. To house the station, Howard Frazier built the 1210 studio building. The FCC rearranged the radio dial in 1939, and WSNJ moved from 1210 up to 1240 kilocycles. However, a big change took place in the 1940s when our country entered World War II. Studios and offices were set up downtown in the Eagle Building at Pearl and Warren Streets. It made things easier because of gasoline rationing and other shortages. As part of the war effort, WSNJ took part in the national drive to sell war bonds through the Junior Commando program. The young people sought pledges to buy war savings bonds and helped collect old newspapers and scrap metal for the war drive. The WSNJ Junior Commandos were up for a National Peabody Award in 1943, but came in second to Bob Hope. During the 1940s, Howard Frazier sold WSNJ to U.S. Congressman Elmer Ween, who also owned Ween Chick Farms and Poultry Labs of Vineland. Paul Alger remained general manager. Along came 1946. WSNJ added an FM signal for its listeners, the first FM station in South Jersey. Originally operating at 98.9 FM, it later moved up the dial to 107.7 FM. In the early days, the high-quality station carried classical music and hourly news from the QXR network of the New York Times. Eventually, FM simulcast the WSNJ AM programs. The coverage map for WSNJ FM was considerably larger than the old AM map. You could now hear the station almost to Atlantic City, Philadelphia, and into Delaware. A well-liked show of the mid-40s was Town Meeting, with Paul Alger himself, seen here, as Master of Ceremonies. The panel show would discuss current events and give listeners a perspective of the issues of the day. In the late 1940s, WSNJ broadcast live music from the Leroy Theater in Millville. The music was appreciated by the theater audience as well as the fans listening at home. They needed a new, almost 500-foot antenna tower to broadcast the best FM signal. So the station purchased the field across Burlington Road and built a cinder block building to house the AM and FM transmitters. WSNJ began broadcasting from temporary studios in the vacant restaurant called the 1240 Grill right next door until the original studio building could be picked up and moved over 400 yards on a hard dirt driveway and placed next to the transmitter building, where more office space was added. Yes, a heavily walled fallout shelter was indeed part of one corner of the cinder block building during the Cold War. While coast-to-coast networks carried comedy and dramatic shows for their affiliates, WSNJ aired several of its own syndicated shows, such as I Was a Communist for the FBI, starring Dana Andrews as the patriotic spy, and a scary drama entitled
The Haunting Hour.
Then in the late 1940s, fans could come to the SNJ studios at Carl's Corner to see and hear a country western band called Yodelin' Bill Haley and his Down Homers. Bill had released several modest hits with the country music. At first, fans stood in the lobby and watched the boys through the big glass studio window. But the crowds became so large, the band played in the lobby, and the audience stood outside the building. But the cowboy singer soon left SNJ for something new called rock, with his first hit, Crazy Man Crazy, and then Rock Around the Clock. They became internationally known as Bill Haley and his Comets. Another well-known star, Al Alberts of the Four Aces, occasionally appeared on WSNJ for an interview and to help play his newest hit record. Many air personalities at WSNJ remained here for a long time, such as Don Hart, Joe McCulley, Ed Locke, Jonathan Casey, the country storekeeper and DJ. Paul Hunsberger, a World War II veteran who served in Europe, was a WSNJ salesman announcer who was best remembered for his interview program, Off the Cuff. Over a period of about 50 years, he interviewed thousands of people. His guests came from nearby, from across the nation, and from foreign countries, some famous, some not so famous, all with something interesting to tell. Here he's seen with organist Lowell Ayres on the left, who had his own musical program on SNJ. In the late 50s, ABC TV telecast the Cowtown Rodeo coast to coast in black and white. One day, the New York-based announcer Marty Glickman could not get to Cowtown on time, so WSNJ's Jerry Alden and Cowtown owner Stoney Harris did the play-by-play. Of course, now you can see all the action at Cowtown Rodeo on SNJ Today each week in full color during the season. After about 5 years, Congressman Ween sold WSNJ to his program manager, Paul Alger, and SNJ continued to grow and receive programming awards. A young man named Jerry Alden, who joined the staff back in '38, became well known as a play-by-play announcer for high school football and basketball. Eventually, he got involved with the Bridgeton Recreation Department and Babe Ruth baseball. In 1960, the city built Memorial Field, which later became known as Alden Field in his honor, where he and George Moore broadcast the Bridgeton Invitational Tournament for semi-pro baseball teams each summer. The 1970s rolled around, and in 1971, Paul Alger sold a half-interest in SNJ to Ed and Kay Bold. Ed Bold's name was connected with WSNJ across many years. He had always been interested in radio, even as a child. During World War II, he joined the U.S. Coast Guard and was assigned to communications with patrol boats around New York City. Ed later switched to more advanced electronics and had communications schooling. After he left the Coast Guard in 1946, Ed became an engineer at WSNJ, AM and FM, not thinking he might one day own the place. By 1971, he bought half interest in the station, and by 1990, Ed and his wife Kay became sole owners of the facility. In the 1970s, Don Murray is remembered for his program Outdoor World, on which he took calls to answer questions and discuss nature, wildlife, ecology, and the environment. He seemed to know all about these fields. Don did the show by phone from his own home. For several years during the 1980s, Herb Stiles was the station program director. Herb had served in the U.S. Air Force as a radio and TV specialist for the North American Air Defense Command and in the Armed Forces Radio and Television Service. He helped to continue localized programming at SNJ, which contributed to more prestigious awards for our station. After he left SNJ, Herb became mayor of his hometown, Elmer, New Jersey. The Bold family continued traditional SNJ programs with Ed as general manager and chief engineer, his wife Kay Bold handling accounts. Susan Bold Reed, a talented harpist, had a phone-in program to help listeners with home and garden questions. Her sister Lynn Bold Timberman worked in the front office preparing daily program logs. The station continued to receive well-deserved awards from such organizations as the Salvation Army and praise from the New Jersey State Assembly. During the 1990s, popular shows on SNJ included Fred Sharkey's Morning Wake-Up Music Program, George Moore and Hotline, where he fielded phone calls to discuss nearly any problem, often with well-known guests in the studio. The transmitting tower was built to withstand hurricane winds. However, in 1994, an ice storm wrecked the top of the FM antenna. WSNJ FM was knocked off the air for 3 or 4 weeks. Well, fortunately, WSNJ could continue to broadcast on AM 1240 until the new antenna was hoisted in place atop the tower. By 2003, Ed Bold made plans to sell WSNJ FM at 107.7 to a company which wanted to move the station to the Philadelphia area and operate at 107.9 FM. The FM transmitter was finally shut down in February 2004 for the last time and moved in a complicated deal totaling $35 million. However, WSNJ AM was sold separately to Jim Quinn, who operated WMVB AM and QBC TV2 in Millville. Jim continued to broadcast most of the familiar WSNJ programs, although now the radio station was heard on both SNJ and MVB. Plus, many of the radio studio shows could be seen at home via QBC TV2 on the Comcast cable system across Cumberland County. WSNJ veteran Paul Hunsberger decided in about 2005 he was retiring, but it was about 6 years later that he actually left SNJ. Paul passed on another year later at the age of 93. It seemed almost everyone in Cumberland County knew the name Paul Hunsberger. During 2013, Jim Quinn met with Ken Pustizzi of Trico Lift to discuss opportunities in the future of the broadcasting industry. The conversation went so well that by 2014, Mr. Pustizzi became the owner of WSNJ and QBC TV. New studios were set up in the Glassworks building on Wheaton Road in Millville. The radio station was built into the rotunda, or flying saucer, atop the building. An ultramodern TV studio and control room were built on the first floor, complete with news reporting set and the green screen wall for special effects. The name was now SNJ Today. A TV newscast Monday through Friday was established with weatherman Nick Pittman, sportscaster Mike Frankel, and news anchor Cara McCullum, a former Miss New Jersey. Regrettably, an auto accident cut short the life of Cara.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SNJ Today News. I'm Michelle Dawn Mooney.
Veteran news anchor Michelle Dawn Mooney now heads up the SNJ News team. The newscast covers South Jersey happenings and is carried on Channel 4 across South Jersey, as well as Cable Channel 22 in Cumberland County at 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Our FM station returned to the air at 99.9. And now, we celebrate an amazing 80-year history of service. It started with a modest radio station, which has grown into a state-of-the-art facility, providing AM and FM radio, television, a newspaper, and online content. 80 years. Happy birthday, SNJ Today.